Welcome to Cycling Demystified, brought to you by Foundation Bike Fit and Frequency Cycle Works, the podcast where we help you take your cycling to the next level by sharing the knowledge from experienced bike fitters, mechanics, and the hidden players within the bike industry. Welcome to the podcast, Fran. It's really good to catch up. Been a while. But good to see your face on the screen. And interestingly, I think we've both moved out of London since we last saw each other. So expats
we
these
both
days.
Disappeared into the provinces.
Yeah, into places where you can ride your bike without riding for an hour through traffic, I think. So yeah. But yeah, I thought we'd get you onto the podcast because obviously the Olympics are on and you're about to race the Para-Olympic Games, which is an amazing achievement in its own. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But I think you have an amazing and inspiring story. And so I thought we'd get you on just to tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, what you do, where you've come from. And for people that don't know you, you're currently racing the individual time trial in the Paralympics and some track as well. But before that, you were a para-triathlete. And even before that, you were a world champion rock climber. Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, boulderer, rock climber?
No, para
sports
climbing.
climber. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, tell us about your journey. How did you get to being a world champion in climbing, to triathlon, to now racing the Olympics?
So I, climbing wise, I grew up in Cornwall. So I didn't have a disability as a kid. I acquired my disability when I was 22. I had an accident at work and basically dislocated some vertebrae in my neck. So I damaged my spinal cord, which means I'm an incomplete tetraplegic. So my hands and arms are affected, so are my legs. Basically everything from kind of t-shirt line down. I can walk with braces and crutches. I use a wheelchair when I'm tired sometimes. But I grew up in Cornwall. I did outdoor sports, so kind of climbing through school, kayaking, sailing, mountain biking, purely because my school offered those as like a sports activity type thing. My dad was an outdoor instructor, so kind of figured that. But also, I'm a twin, and my twin was a very good, like, England level hockey player. And so I didn't want to do the same mainstream sports of like hockey and netball that she played. Because when you're a twin, you want to do something different. So I was like, right, okay, I'll go and do all the outdoor sports because that's, completely different. I competed a little bit as a kid as a climber, but just through the like youth series, nothing serious. Went to university, and then had my accident. Got back into climbing because all my friends were climbers. I'd been at the uni climbing club, that kind of thing. It was the same people I wanted to hang out with, and discovered paraclimbing by chance. That one of my friends was like, "Oh, there's a competition that's for like people with a disability with climbing," and I knew nothing about the way disability sports worked, like classification and how it worked. I turned up, got classified, and did okay. My first national champs, I turned up and I think I surprised myself with how well I did, and then just got selected onto like their national team for the first World Championships that they held in Paris ironically in 2012. Alongside that, I was like, I should probably try and get a bit fitter. So I did some cross training. So I started swimming, and I was like, okay, quite enjoy swimming. I wanted to get back into cycling. So I tried to get back into cycling with a hand cycle because that was where I was directed, as in, you've got a spinal cord injury, you ride a hand bike. You don't ride a normal bicycle. And I got a hand bike and it was okay, but it was heavy and I was slow because I don't weigh anything. And it probably weighed 4 times what I do. And I didn't really enjoy it. And I wanted to get back. I had my bike still. So I wanted to get back on like my mountain bike and then a road bike. So somebody told me about like adult trikes. And I was like, nah, I'm not in for that. That's not happening. So I just was like, right, okay, I'm going to teach myself how to ride a bike again with my braces. I couldn't keep my feet on the pedals. So I bought some like old school toe clips because I didn't want to use clip-in shoes because I didn't know I'd be able to unclip at that point. And kind of just found a park and started trying to ride around the park on the grass. And I fell over a few times, but I picked it back up again fairly quickly. I'd done a little bit of adaptive skiing, so sit skiing in the intervening time, which I think really helped my balance, like retrain my balance with my impairments. So I didn't find it too bad, and I got back on a bike fairly quickly. And then once I worked out that actually clipping pedals were fine, it was much easier because I pull up rather than pushing down when I pedal. So I tend to pull my feet off the pedals if I'm not clipped in. So yeah, I kind of started cross training, did the climbing world championships in 2012, which I won, and I trained for, and I really enjoyed. And around about that time, you may remember we hosted the big sporting event that's going on at the moment. We hosted the Olympics and the Paralympics. And being a Londoner at the time, I was obviously centre of that universe. So I was inspired by the Paralympics to want to go to a Paralympic Games, realising the difference between kind of paraclimbing, which had its world championship, but wasn't a Paralympic sport at the time, to sports like cycling and triathlon. Triathlon wasn't a Paralympic sport at the time, but it became one in Rio. And swimming, I went to wheelchair rugby. I got to go to lots of stuff at the Paralympics when it was in London, kind of by virtue of being there. And that inspired me to want to represent my country at that very highest level, like the pinnacle level. So I carried on with paraclimbing for a couple of years, mostly because I wanted to defend my title at the next World Championships. They say winning one is fine, it's hard, defending one is harder. Which I did, but in the meantime, I was looking and searching for like what para sport, like Paralympic sport, I would have been good at. And I got onto the cycling talent ID program, which ironically, I then chose to go to triathlon, not cycling. I've ended up groveling back at cycling, be like, please take me back. But ever looking for a challenge, I decided I'd actually quite fancy trying to run again. Mostly because there's that thing that, like, when you go running, you just need, in my case, trainers and braces, but you just need your trainers and braces. You don't need a bike and a helmet and like that kind of stuff. So I did work out how to run again. It took me a couple of years to find the right type of AFO braces. So I started off running with crutches and then found braces that were supportive enough for the energy return to allow me to run. And so I went through, cycling talent ID and triathlon's talent ID at the same time, basically, and kind of got onto the foundation program of both sports in 2016. I did my first cycling World Cup, got classified as a C1, which is the most impaired classification. So there's C1 to 5, ride a normal bicycle, if you like, with adaptions. So that might be braces, it might be adaptions to the bike or the brakes or the gears, but it's basically a two-wheel bicycle. It looks like a bicycle. And I came out as a C1, so the most impaired class that ride a two-wheel bicycle. And I won my World Cup. I won the time trial and the road race of that World Cup, but I only really factored into the C1 to 3 combined class, which is what most of the events come kind of world champs in the games are in the road race. And I got selected off the back of that for World Championships in South Africa. But then World Championships in South Africa were a week before Triathlon World Championships. And I've been selected for Triathlon World Championships as well. So I kind of weighed the two. And going to South Africa with cycling would have meant not running or swimming for 10 days before the Triathlon World Championships, which was obviously a suboptimal arrangement. If they'd been the other way around, I probably would have done both. So I ended up going to that was what made my decision. And I ended up going to the Triathlon World Championships that year. Where I medalled, which meant I then got put onto their performance program. So that kind of sealed the deal that my goal at that point was to make the Paralympics for triathlon. So I did kind of 2018, 2019. Things were going well with triathlon. I worked my way up from like bronze, silver to gold at World Championships. So I became world champion in 2019. And then basically two things happened. So I'd qualified for the games effectively by being world champion that year. But then COVID hit, so the games got delayed. But I also, at the same time, got diagnosed with Crohn's and ended up, I had a year where I didn't run and didn't swim because of COVID. I ended up having surgery and had a stoma. So when 2021 came around and we got towards the actual Paralympics, the rearranged games, I went into that nowhere near as fit as I had been in 2019.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to sustain the level of running I used to be able to do before my Crohn's with the stoma. So, I mean, I was pleased to still go. Like, I was fit enough to go and be on the start line, which was an achievement in its own right after such a major surgery and stuff. But I came fourth, which 2 years before I should have won.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, and being the games at Tokyo it wasn't the best experience there wasn't a crowd. It didn't feel any different to a World Championships, really. It wasn't particularly special. So I was determined I wanted to do another Paralympic cycle and try to go to a games that has like the full atmosphere of all the people, but also a medal. Realistically, triathlon was probably not the way to do that, as I couldn't sustain enough running. So I looked back at like, okay, well, cycling did want me in 2016. Maybe I should go back and go to them and see if they want me again. And obviously my cycling had come on quite a lot in the intervening time because you still train for it with triathlon. So I asked to talent transfer to cycling through the UK Sport Cycling. They have like a talent transfer program. And cycling accepted me after a year. So I was lucky that triathlon effectively funded my first year of cycling. So to enable me to make that transition, having proven that I medalled at World Championships that year. So that was then enough for cycling to say, okay, yeah, we'll take you on. So that was cool. But then I had a couple of setbacks. I missed my first track World Championships because I was kind of like run into the curb by a motorbike and dislocated my thumb. And it wouldn't stay in joint. So I had to have that operated on, so I missed the World Championships on track in 2022. Which annoyingly were at the Paris velodrome, so I've not ridden on the velodrome that we'll be riding on, whereas everyone else has. 2023 came around, and I had a medical mishap that caused me to have broken ribs. So I rode an entire season with broken ribs because they wouldn't heal, and I needed to get them plated, but I couldn't miss the qualifying points that we needed to qualify slots for the games to get them plated. So I had to wait until the end of the season after the Glasgow World Championships. So that was painful. And then, did 2023, was really successful at track worlds, really successful at road worlds. Came around to 2024. And then this year, I've had a decent run, except I, ruined my knee and tore my ACL with it in a crash in January. So I have had to adapt to like wearing a knee brace and change my training and stuff to be able to, but the World Cups this year have gone okay. So even with that, so I'm hopeful for the games, and obviously having been selected now, it's all heading forwards to the games. But there's the other thing that, like, within cycling, like I said, there's 5 classes of female bicycle riders that aren't tandems, hand cycles, or trikes. So effectively, there's not 5 medals for every event like there is at World Championships. So at World Championships, there's an individual pursuit medal for the C1 class. There's a 500 medal for the C1 class. And then on the road, there's the TT and the road race. At the games, the C1 to 3 classes combined.
Right.
So, and the 4s and 5s are combined for some events, but not all events. And it's purely because of numbers. There's not enough C1 to 3 women to justify having individual races for them yet. Now I'm hoping more exposure, more people, this will change. So at the games coming up, my events, the IP isn't factored. So effectively it's 1 to 3 combined. So I would in theory get knocked out in the first round by a C3 because my world record for the C1, which is pretty much as fast as I go, is 20 seconds slower than the C3s go because they're less impaired. So I'm not going to do the IP because it would be a bit of a waste of energy. But I am going to do the 500 because the way the 500 and the road, so the track 500 and the road TT are both factored events. So a factor is applied to your time to level the playing field somewhat between the C3s, C2s, and C1s. So there's a different factor for C1, C2, and the C3s is 100% of their time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do those 2 because it does make it a little fairer.
Yeah.
Obviously, though, I'm not a sprinter. I'm tiny. I weigh nothing. I'm definitely not Chris Hoy. So I'm not going to be... the 500 is not my favourite event. I'm an IP specialist if I had to pick a track event. Yeah. So I will do the 500 for exposure because obviously you never know who might watch on TV. Somebody who might fit into the C1 classification and bring, therefore, another person to sport. We don't get loads of television exposure and media exposure. So anything that helps attract more girls, especially in the more impaired classes, will help. And you've got to see one to be one, really. So I'm going to do the 500 for some media exposure. I don't know that I'll make the finals round, but whatever. It'll be good to experience the velodrome. It's far enough away from the TT. I've got plenty of recovery time in between.
Yeah.
And it'll be nice to be part of the team doing track as well, because everyone else is doing lots of track events. So it'll be nice to feel a little bit part of that.
Yeah.
And then my focus is the road TT. So, which is a very different, very interesting course compared to what we normally have. So our courses are often flat or fairly flat and not crazy technical. The course they've given us, which is out at Clichy-sous-Bois, so not where the Olympics have been held, is it has 2 significant climbs in it. So kind of 3-minute climb, a 2.5-minute climb and a 2-minute climb, at 4 to 6%, and then sections in between that have roundabouts and cobbles and lots of turns, and it's interesting. And it's 14.5k, I think, plus and the TT and the road race are the same course. So I will do the TT, which for me is only 1 lap, so 14.5k. And then 2 days later we have a road race, but our road race is again combined 1 to 3. So I should, in theory, get dropped by the C3s. But my goal is actually there. We've got a C2 girl who's very strong. So she's as strong as the C3s and can definitely hang with them. But it's to basically facilitate her being up with the C3s for the last couple of laps. So I will work for her so she doesn't have to spend as much time in the wind and as much time doing, like, covering breaks and attacks in the first couple of laps, so that when I'm then dropped by them, she's got a bit more energy to hopefully get a medal.
Yeah.
Which will be a nice way to round it out, I think, because less pressure and just kind of, I'm there to domestique for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so complicated. There's so many factors to kind of consider. And so just getting to the games itself is an achievement in itself. So yeah, congratulations for making the selection and doing that and being healthy enough to do that. And, I guess, a lot of athletes talk about, or I certainly noticed in some of the interviews with kind of people on the Olympics this year, just talking about how they've made it to the games healthy, and that's a big goal, because I guess you're riding on the edge all the time.
Oh
yeah. But also, it's great that you can take part in multiple different disciplines and events that take place, and we saw that with the recent women's road race and the ITT, and those girls who kind of stayed with who are doing the ITT have enough time to kind of rest up for the road race and so on and contribute. And it's so good to be able to be involved in multiple different ways. And I imagine that's a much nicer way to be compared with like people who are just doing one very specific discipline. Like, if you're a 100-meter sprinter or I guess they can do 200, or if you're like a discus thrower, like it's really difficult to be doing other things. So I guess as endurance athletes, we have the luxury of doing different things, and I guess you get to ride the velodrome this time, which is great. You get to get on the Paris velodrome, which is great.
Should be a good experience with a full crowd.
Yeah. And do you think that will kind of make a big difference? Certainly after Tokyo, where it was obviously there were no crowds or very little crowds, and in a very far away place, Paris will probably feel a bit closer to home.
Yeah, I think so. We've all said it's as close to a home games as we're going to get, having had London and not done London. And like I say, we're really lucky. Glasgow was a full velodrome. And so we experienced a bit of that vibe there, which I think helps with the nerves of then being at a suddenly packed velodrome. Might be a bit stressful, but I think it'll be brilliant, because it'll just you just go faster when there's people screaming at you, basically. Well, I think I do anyway. As long as you're not, I think there are people that would potentially find it performance detrimental insofar as overwhelming pressure. I try to feed off the energy of a crowd, so for me it's like helpful. I don't find it overly stressful, so I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll feel like a real Paralympics, whereas Tokyo felt you were part of this kind of like strange remote event that
Mm.
was sort of happening but sort of not, with so many rules that actually it was more stressful and unenjoyable than it was enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can feed off that energy and the success of Glasgow, I mean, Glasgow World Championships 2023, you won 5 gold medals. Is that right?
Yeah, I
Five.
think so, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah,
won. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely
5 medals and 5 golds and 1 silver.
yeah, well, yeah, casually, But yeah, what an achievement! And that was the most amount of kind of golds won by any person within the kind of world championships. So
Yeah,
yeah, incredible achievement. But and that games itself was an amazing games. Like I remember watching it. I didn't have the chance to go to Glasgow, but just the crowds looked mental. It just every event there were just people everywhere and just
yeah,
going nuts. So yeah, I guess that must have been quite an experience in itself.
yeah. It was very different to a lot of triathlons. So no offense to triathlon, and it would be better if it changed. But because the way para-triathlon works, a lot of the triathlon events are like early in the morning, so they kind of
Mm,
6, 7 o'clock. Now I'm sure in Paris there'll be, if you've watched the able-bodied triathlons that have been on at like 7 a.m., a
mm,
million people have turned up. So I'm pretty sure, and they're lucky. Their course is exactly the same. Well, it's very similar. It's
mm,
on the same bridge, so
yeah.
they will have the same draw of crowds to the centre of Paris. And it's again a free event. It's not ticketed. It's why hopefully our road events will be well attended,
Mm,
because it's not ticketed. It gives people the opportunity to just go.
mm,
But a lot of the triathlon World Cups and stuff that we did, and World Championships, we're very first thing in the morning before the able-bodied people later. So
mm,
there was very few crowds, if any, which is why
mm.
Tokyo, in a strange way, just felt like another World Cup.
Yeah.
Um, so it'd be really nice to actually have the experience of having a full crowd for an event, and I'm sure they'll have the same thing as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I mean, yeah, just even up the climbs and so on. If there's a good crowd up the climbs, then it's always amazing just to have those people screaming at you.
Oh yeah,
um,
definitely.
and I guess maybe the climbs will kind of suit you in your kind of your strengths.
In some respects, yeah. I mean, like I say, I don't weigh anything, so my power to weight does help. It's an interesting one because when you then level it out against the C3s, they're kind of able to put out a couple of hundred more watts than me. So, and they're
Mm,
not the biggest girls in the world. So it does and it doesn't play to my strength. It'll be very interesting to see how it pans out.
yeah,
If it was a flat TT, I could probably predict, but it's not, so it's very hard to know. All
yeah,
I want to do is turn up on the day and do the best ride I can, and I'll
yeah,
be happy with whatever the outcome is if I've done the best ride I can on the day,
yeah,
which I think is very different to my attitude going into Tokyo, where I came fourth, which kind of sucks. I
yeah,
didn't enjoy the experience
yeah,
because I think 2 years before I should have won, and I hadn't really taken into account what had happened in the intervening 2 years. I still wanted to win. Whereas now, what will be will be. Hopefully, I'll get a medal. But I want to, if I do the best ride that I can on the day, and that's not a medal, then that's absolutely fine. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I hope to enjoy the whole Paralympics experience
mm,
more, and like enjoy being a Paralympian, which I haven't really appreciated before.
yeah. And have you met other people as part of the team, as part of Team GB, as that you're racing with and against? And so,
Yeah. So all our cycling team launch was a couple of weeks ago. So we're up in Manchester, and there's a lot of us. Um, because we've got a very big, very successful team, and we qualified quite a lot of slots. So we've got a lot of tandems. We have some track specialists who won't do road, but they will come and
mm,
support us on the road, which is really nice.
mm,
It's nice that we're all going to be based in we're not staying in the village until the road events. We're staying at a hotel by the track,
mm,
which is a real like privilege because it's quite away from the village, so we don't have to do that commute every day. But then we're also all moving into the village for the road events and then the closing ceremony, so that'll be cool. So that the whole team will be a team from start to finish. So that's cool and a bit of a privilege because a lot of other sports don't get as long a period of time at the games.
yeah,
But also when we got to go to kitting out this time, whereas Tokyo you just kind of got sent your kit. We got to go to kitting out, which was a whole experience that obviously all of like Paralympics GB have been through. So feeling part of the bigger team is really cool. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to being part of that bigger team because we're generally quite successful.
Yeah. Oh, tell us a bit more about that kitting out. So you go there for a day and you get given like all your tracksuits and kind of GB specific kit, things like that. Is that right?
Yeah, so we went to, it was a Loughborough for us. So we turned up at Loughborough. It was a whole experience day where like you go in, you try on all the kit for size, but you have like a personal shopper who essentially like brings you the kit in outfits and you try it all and then they swap it out for other sizes. And then they send it to like a central warehousey bit there, and then you go downstairs and like do some media stuff and things like that. And then when you've done the media stuff and things, then you get your kit bag. And it's like, it's with their partners. So it's sponsored by like Audi. There are people from the lottery there.
Yep.
All the people that like support us, like the British Elite Athlete Association, stuff like that. So that was cool. It was a good experience. And it was the whole cycling team. So that was cool. Yeah. And it means that also, unlike Tokyo, where everyone was like swapping, like trying to get kit swaps remotely, if anything didn't fit, you could request different sizes. So that was kind of cool. But we haven't seen our cycling kit yet because that was only that like Adidas leisure kit, like the kit you'd wear day to day, and podium kit and ceremonies kit. We haven't seen the cycling kit yet, so we've all been measured for skin suits and stuff, but haven't actually seen them. I've sent off my TT helmet to be wrapped in whatever branding they want to wrap them all in, so they all look the same.
Nice.
But I haven't seen anything yet. I won't find that out until I go up to the holding camp on the 17th.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. That'll be a whole thing in itself.
Yeah, yeah. I always wonder about that because, you know, the Olympics, everyone has to, like cyclists obviously ride their own bikes and so on, but then, you know, all the team kit has to be the same. But does it make a difference, you know, not knowing what you're wearing, and have you experienced it? And, you know, does it make a difference on the day?
Well, the thing is, we've done some kit testing in like the wind tunnel and stuff with different skin suits and things. So we kind of know it'll fit, and they've worked out for each person what's in theory the fastest. So it's the trust that then it will fit. And our normal kit fits, so I think it'll be fine. It'll just be really like Christmas again when you get like a million things to unwrap and try on and be like, oh, what jacket have I got and what, you know, because I think we have all training kit as well, so that'll be exciting again. Although it's that thing because we don't get it to the start of the holding camp, it's packing but leaving enough space for what you think you're going to get.
Well, hopefully you need to leave a bit of room for some goodies on the way back as well. So.
Yeah, well, you know, there's all the French things that we can indulge in after we've competed. Although we have World Championships 2 weeks later, so it's not like we can just go wild. We literally have Road World Championships in Zurich at the end of September.
Wow. Whew, no rest with the wicked.
No, but then it's holiday time, so that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be a really good roundup to the year. So, hopefully that all goes well. And I mean, you must be pumped when you get all that kit and just feel like you're part of the team. And I wonder what it's. I mean, GB obviously has a big kind of Paralympic team, and there are other countries with like kind of bigger teams. But I guess you get to kind of mix in with some of the other nations as well, which aren't so well funded, and it must be interesting talking to them and kind of how they got there. So everyone's got an interesting story of like kind of how they got there. Have you met many other
like
kind of
some of the people we race against?
Yeah,
like we race in quite a diverse field, so it's nice to see. Like my main competitors are Chinese and Australian, so it's very different backgrounds and very different setups, and it's really cool to get to talk to people and find out what their setups like and stuff. So yeah, it'd be really it's a nice, not community, but we are competitive, but at the same time everyone kind of gets along, and it's nice to chat to people from the other countries. So yeah. I enjoy that aspect.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And one of the things that I've noticed in this Olympics so far is actually all the camaraderie between all the different athletes. I mean, maybe it's just like some of the events that I've seen, but I think there's just I think the Olympics is pretty special. Everyone recognizes it's an achievement just to be there. And there's just such a high of like kind of being able to race in such an environment. And people really relish that. And, if you get a medal, then that's great. But just being there and competing, and I'm sure, everyone wants to, be on the top spot. But yeah, it's been amazing seeing the kind of the hugs and the kind of support for each other from different countries and so on at the end of races. And it really makes me kind of inspired by kind of what sport can do and so on. And I really hope that the same kind of happens at the Paralympics as well. Like, you get that kind of exposure and that kind of goodwill that comes across through sport and nothing else. So,
Oh yeah, I think fundamentally what is really easy to forget, but it isn't when you're an athlete, is that if you don't appreciate your competitors, without your competitors, you wouldn't have a race. You don't win by showing up by yourself. Like, that means nothing. So actually, I appreciate the effort everyone puts in as much as anyone else. Like, equally. I don't mind where you're from. I don't mind what class you're in. Everyone makes the event, and everyone turns up to be their best, wherever that puts them. And I do think we underappreciate and under-celebrate people for actually just qualifying to go. And it's not that they just qualified. It's a massive achievement to be how many thousand people are Paralympians in the world? Not that many. Same with the Olympians. And of those thousands of Olympians, how many win a medal? Not a massive percentage. Look at the road race. 3 people got medals, 50 people didn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't make them less of a competitor and having put less effort into going. And I think sometimes we need to remember that everybody is worthy of that kind of respect and inspiration across the field. Which is why I think you get those moments in sport, because I think fundamentally as competitors, we remember that we don't have competition unless there's other people. So we should appreciate everyone's effort, and everyone looks out for each other. I think certainly within the Paralympic community, there's quite a lot of camaraderie and friendship and willingness to kind of help each other out if you can, and just generally be nice. We are competitive, but at the same time, there is no reason to not have a good competition, even if that means that you have to help someone else out or be nice to somebody. It doesn't take much to just be a friendly person and a friendly face.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, speaking about that, there's so much that gets you to the games as well, all the kind of people working in the background and so on. So can you give us an idea of like kind of the support that you get, or the kind of people that kind of make stuff happen in the background? Because you're a physio by trade as well, so you still working and doing your day job as well as training and doing all the rest of it.
So fundamentally, I work ad hoc. I locum a bit at the moment. I've done less this year because focus is on the games. I'm lucky. So we're supported by the National Lottery through the UK Sport Lottery funding program, which means I can afford to not have to work. Otherwise, I literally would have to have a full-time job to pay my mortgage. That lottery funding does, and therefore anyone that buys a lottery ticket supports us. It sounds silly. You probably don't think about it, but it does. But then I will work again in the off season. I tend to do locum jobs in the off season because I like to keep my skill set up, and it's what I want to go back to. Behind that, then obviously we have the British cycling set up. So within the paracycling kind of team, there's 3 coaches. So I have an allocated coach, and then there's who kind of sets some of my training, but I also have a personal coach. So my personal coach sets most of my day-to-day training. My BC coach kind of just covers my track stuff. And then we have team physio, I have also, through the UK Sport funded system, again, I have access to a local physio, so I don't have to go all the way to Manchester to see somebody. We have, I mean, I do try to fix myself because I'm a physio, but sometimes we don't make the best patients, so it's often helpful to see someone else. Then we have physiologists. We have access to a performance analyst who will film track sessions and analyze them for us and does all the wind tunnel stuff and stuff like that. She's amazing. And then we have gym support. So there's S&C support if you want it. I'm lucky enough to have access to my local leisure centre, who kindly gifted me a membership when I moved here. So that's been really helpful. And then, we have races. We have our carers and our mechanics, who are same people at every race almost, so they're familiar. But they probably have the toughest job, because they have to the poor carers have to pander to every single athlete's individual wants, needs, and requests. Sometimes when the athletes are not very nice about it, because we all have our moments, and they just take all the flack and they take the good and the bad, and they literally do everything and anything for us. We are very spoiled. Triathlon, we didn't have carers, and I can totally tell how spoiled we are and appreciate that. In cycling, and then our mechanics, who literally just fix everything, and it's so nice to just be able to turn up at a race and your bike's there and ready and fixed and just good to go. And they just work ridiculous hours, because they have to be on deck every single track day at the games, and then every single road day they're there from 4 a.m. till 10 p.m. and they just work relentlessly. And then someone comes up to them and going, "Oh, my Di2's not working after a training ride," and they have to then deal with that as well. So it's they're definitely the people that deserve the biggest crate of beer after racing. On the whole, is the mechanics and carers. But we're very lucky to have that team, and then we have medical team as well. So we have doctors and stuff too that will travel with us. So it's really cool. It's really nice to have a support network that doesn't change so much. So we nearly always have the same carers. We nearly always have the same mechanics. So they get to know us and we get to know them, and they see us at our best and our worst, quite probably. So it does feel like a really close-knit team. So that's good. But we're just lucky and privileged that they have that UK Sport money to be able to fund that. There are countries that don't have that big a support network and that big a team on the equipment we have and things like that. So it is completely a privilege, and it's as long as you remember that, it's great. It's easy to forget that and stop appreciating it, and I think that's sometimes not ideal.
Yeah. And do you tend to train mostly on your alone, or do you kind of go group rides and things like that? I mean, depending on where different people are across the country.
So we're an interesting team in the sense that we've got quite a lot of Manchester-based riders, because obviously that's where the track is, that BT use, that's their home. So a lot of people are based in Manchester, especially people that focus more on the track or do kind of 50-50 track and road. I chose not to move to Manchester because it's London. My partner still works in London, commutable distance. I'm on a train line to Manchester where I live now, so it takes me an hour and a half. It's not a problem. But at the same time, we do have remote riders. I'm not the only person that doesn't live in Manchester, and I'm not the only person that isn't track focused solely. So we're quite a mixed group. So I don't often ride with other people. When I was in London, I rode with the club a lot. So I do 2 rides a week with the club. I haven't really joined the club since I've moved out. I just kind of, I moved in October last year, so it fell in the winter when I didn't really want to ride outside that much, because my spasticity hates the cold, so I don't ride outside in the winter. If I'm going to ride outside, I go away. So I've just kind of been solo training. When we're away at races, I will often ride with kind of the C2 girl, Daphne, or sometimes ride with our other C1, Katie, on training rides. So, because it's nice to be social and ride with other people. But most of my day-to-day training is solo.
Yeah, I'd imagine that it's difficult just coordinating so many people unless they all kind of live next to each other. And I guess you get to meet up at those training camps at certain times of the year and get to know each other and so on. But amazing stuff. And so, looking forward to the games. And Are you going to spend some time in Paris afterwards, or are you going to just like kind of see what happens?
So no, I've got the TT on the 4th, the road race on the 7th. Games finish on the 8th, so really hoping we get to go to the closing ceremony. They kind of hinted that we might be able to, because that would be a completely different experience. We won't go to the opening ceremony because it's too close to the event starting for us. That would be kind of cool. And then no, come straight back, because literally we travel back on the 9th, and I go to Road Worlds on the 22nd. So straight back into training for that kind of 10-day block in between. And then I'll have a holiday after Road Worlds. So.
Yeah. A very well-deserved break, I'm sure. So,
yeah.
Be good. Well, thanks so much, Fran. That's for sharing your story. It's been an amazing journey so far, and still chapters to be written, which is really exciting. Appreciate all the insights and just sharing so openly with us all on your experiences and so on. And wishing you all the best of luck in Paris in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much.
And if people want to find you, where can they find you? Have you got like an Instagram page or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm at Fran R. Brown. Look at my Rachel middle name in there somehow. I think someone had Fran Brown when I looked the first time. But yeah, I tend to put posts up on there, so that's mostly where I hang.
Cool. Go find Fran on Instagram, and look out for that individual time trial and all the track events at the Paralympics. Any shout outs you want, Fran, or you all good?
No, I'm all good. No, all good.
All right.
All good.
Well, thanks a lot again, and we wish you the best of luck, and appreciate you coming on.
That's right. Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks, Fran.
Suffering from numb hands, tingling toes, and any other persistent discomforts when you ride? These are all signs that your bike fit could be improved. If you're bike fit curious, get in touch with Way or Matt by emailing info@foundation.fit or finding them on Instagram @FDN_bikefit. Finally, for all your bike servicing needs, custom dream bike or hand-built wheels, go to www.frequencycycleworks.com or find me on Instagram @frequencycycleworks. Until next time, keep on spinning.